In this episode, Gale reveals the plans for the air intake system and the team drops the cab on the chassis.
I think we gotta air this thing out.
Banks Built, protected by AMSOIL, with support from Roadster Shop and Nitto.
Okay guys, it's time to start cutting. So I spent earlier today, did a little bit of prep. As you can see, I've got my striping line here. I've been talking to Sean, I want to take out the bare minimum. So I've got this little inboard cut set up here, going below the drip rail. Gonna take that out as one piece, and then the big part's gonna be the trans tunnel. So it doesn't really have a trans tunnel in the cab, it's more of a trans hump. And the Allison is huge, so I've got Matt over there. He's gonna help me kind of line up a cutting line in the cab, and probably gonna end up having to go all the way out to the yoke. And then the goal is to be able to put the cab onto the chassis with the engine in place. So I gotta get to cutting. All right, firewall is out. We did a bit of an audible and decided to take out the steering through hole. It's all doubled up and everything. It was really more trouble than it's worth for locating steering that's already kind of lined up on the dash. So that little portion's out. Matt's in there. We're getting ready to cut out the trans tunnel next, so a lot more cutting ahead. Time to get back to it. I'm gonna deburr all these sharp edges before I slice myself up. You ain't got no tunnel, Lieutenant Dan. Are you 30 years old and losing your teeth from your worn out suspension on your clapped out JDM? This isn't for you because it's not from a junkyard. All right, so the cab is cut up. We're ready to test fit it onto the Roadster Shop chassis with the engine in place. But before that, we did want to reuse the stock body mounts. So we reached out to our friends at Energy Suspension and asked them for the Hyperflex C10 body mounts. And we touched on this before about how the Roadster Shop chassis utilizes the same compression style body mounts. And I found out that those are C10 specific. So the C20 mounts are in shear for more cushion, a little bit more travel. So Roadster Shop chassis utilizes the C10 mounts. We can convert over to, I think, what is a more tried and true method of the compression style, double donut, convoluted, whatever you want to call it. So let's get into it. Okay, so these Hyperflex series are polyurethane body mounts. They're rigid enough for a solid connection to the chassis, but soft enough to have a nice cush ride for those long drives we have ahead of us. So let's crack these open, and you know, we've got the frame sitting outside, so I would love to go and do a side-by-side of these nice fresh bushings next to those old beat-up ones. So I say we take one of these guys, we'll head outside and do a little side-by-side comparison. So I had to take a little peek at the instruction manual. It turns out, depending if it's core support, front mounts, or rear mounts, there's a different combination of materials here. So I put together a front mount, and oh my God. Let's see if I can get this one off first. That came out. There's our old washer, our old rubber there. Let's get a nice side by side. I think we're gonna improve our ride a little bit here. I'm surprised this thing is still holding on.
Keep coming. And you can swing your ass that way.
All right, let's go right about there. We got a few feet in front of us to roll the chassis as it comes down.
It's
Never
doing it
mind.
for us.
It's automatic.
It's assembling itself.
All right, we're pretty well lined up. I'm gonna bring it down real slow.
Okay.
All right, guys, the cab is on and I am pleasantly surprised with the fitment. We are just barely clearing here with the intercooler, and if we take a peek inside, although the transmission is basically in the cab, Matt and I got pretty good with our rough estimates and it's fitting in there pretty well. Cab mounts, body mounts went on pretty smooth. Rear ones are just the top portion for now, no bolts. Front ones have the bolts lining through, and I think we gotta air this thing out. Surprise! All right, that's the last cut we need. Now that the cab's on, we got the inner fenders cut. We can get inner fenders on, then the fenders, then the grill, corner supports. So I think I ought to go grab Matt and get this thing mocked up. So we've got the whole chassis up on jack stands now. We were checking clearances down low in the oil pan, talking what we want to do there. And now that I'm looking at it, with the stock inner fenders cut, I think we're still going to need it to be drooped out just to fit up these inner fenders and get everything mocked in place, so we can start getting an idea of where things are going to live.
Yeah, we got a lot of parts to fit up right now. We've got only a few weeks till it leaves to go to Empire. So we've got exhaust, we've got oil pan like you mentioned, we've got steering. So this thing will be up and down, sheet metal on, sheet metal off quite a few times here over the next couple of weeks.
All right, let's throw them on.
All right.
Original finish.
All right.
All right, guys. Looks like, oh, you got the nose all back on. My meetings are over with, so it's race truck time. Although it's kind of
Missing a
not
few
too
pieces.
streamlined. So I brought some examples of how we did the Type-R, our road race truck, the Sidewinder Type-R. Nose of the truck, we hung air filters in the front plenum. So let me show you that. This gives you an idea. So you can see the element is down below this panel. So everything that comes in the nose is trapped in this volume. And you can see there's the engine cooling radiator, charge air cooler 1, charge air cooler 2. So the air comes in through the nose, cools the engine, cools the boost air, and feeds the engine filtered air under pressure. So you get ram pressure off the nose as you increase the speed of the truck. And that's what ram air is all about, and that's how we've done every racer we've built in this shop since 1960. Okay, so here's the truck on the chassis jig. So we've got a short jig for conventional wheelbase, and we've got a long jig for long cars. In fact, I'm just talking to the crew about the fuel cell, it looks like here. And here's Sean Torres. What an ingenious and skilled man Sean Torres is. He did all the clays, the wheel wells, this rocker panel, there's an air vent, and the nose. So that truck, we took 10 inches out of the side of the truck, so to speak, but we left the cab height stock. And oddly, in finished form, it looks pretty damn good.
Absolutely.
So everything that came in the nose, here and here, there's a splitter, of course, and it was adjustable. And when this is all finished, the front plenum is sealed on the bottom, it's sealed on the sides, and it's sealed on the top. So if the air enters there, it doesn't bleed off to the sides, like would happen with this truck, in a stock radiator and all of that stuff. So our cooling package, one thing I want to do is seal off all the air that comes into the nose, route it to the cooling package and to the air filters. So I'm thinking vertical air filters. This is the filter. This is a big ass filter, and it has a 9-inch outside diameter on the ceiling flange and a 6-inch inside diameter at the outlet. So the thing is,
That's a big ass filter.
it works well.
I'll have to blur
And
this
we put
one
a
for
nice
proprietary
radius. We
reasons.
put a nice radius in here as well to help the airflow come around that corner. And it doesn't look like much, but let me tell you, here it is blown up. That radius really increases the flow number. It's kind of something to see. So if we turn the filter, turn the drawing upside down, here you've got the filter. So here's the rough placement idea I've got. Right down in here. Now, I'm just gonna, it doesn't want to stay there.
There we go.
It'll stay there. We have to avoid not only the front tire at full compression.
Yeah, we're full droop
All
right now.
And at full lock. So we're going to be pulling up something like this and maybe inclining back. And we want to do that front casting or billet piece we're doing. We'll have the shaft through it and 2 air inlets. So the air inlets there, this is 6-inch. We could go 5 here. We could go 4.5 or 4. I want to make sure that we can couple it.
I've got 5 mocked into the CAD right now.
Okay, if you've got
and
5
that
into the
looks like
CAD
that'll work.
and this is 6, it's starting to get a little happy. But what I had in mind is coming to this drawing again, that the filter, that we do a canister that is straight walled down both sides, and the inside diameter of that canister is 9 inches, which is the OD of this. A little over 9. And it's got a lip so that you drop this in and that stops it right there. So that they protrude uniformly out of their canisters. So the canister would come maybe 200 thousandths below that surface right there. The tire and the fender well or wheel well kind of determine where this thing can be in terms of altitude. Now this is the long form version. The drawing here is the short form version. We do 2 different big ass filters. When I can get the real estate, we do this one, and one alone will flow a massive amount of air with a minimal restriction. But if we get 2 of them in here, we could probably shorten it up to gain some on the tire, more specifically the aluminum. So we've got this cylinder. If we need to taper the cylinder, we could taper it some. But what I want to do is on the front of that cylinder, it will mount to whatever bulkhead we ultimately have, and we'll have a slot feeding into the cylinder. So if you look at it from above, that slot might be something like this. Vertical slot, and we'll come up with what we want for area here. The main thing I want to do is perhaps have a rain shield somewhere in there so that if rain flows through that slot, it's deflected and doesn't go straight into the
We're
filter.
not just immediately ingesting it.
Yeah, and then at the bottom of the cylinder, the housing, which I envision them being aluminum, we'll have some drain holes, so if we get any rainwater that hits the deflector,
Won't pull up in the bottom.
it won't pool up in the bottom and hydraulic the engine, or blower first. The blower gets hydraulic first if you put liquid in. Might even protect the engine. Well, we killed the blower. You know,
Just swap it out.
we just call up Whipple. Hey, guys, something happened to your
Not sure
supercharger.
what.
I don't know what happened. Typical, customer service call. I don't know what happened.
It just broke. I wasn't doing anything.
I'm not trying to put down customers, don't get me wrong. Coming out of the top, and this is kind of obscene, but you've mentioned 5-inch. So here's 5-inch.
Probably pretty close to the smallest CLR we can achieve without destroying that material.
So if it were a 90, which I don't expect it to be,
It's another 6-7 inches of height.
in
off
this
the-
transition, we start at 6. In this transition, we go to 5. And when we're done, we're aiming it right at the nipple on this side. So there'll be one on either side, totally symmetrical. This thing's gonna look bitchin'.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, can you take that for a minute? I'm thinking the angle of this outlet, and we'll have to work it out in CAD. We'll digitize a bit more here. But I'm thinking there's about 20 degrees right there. I'm thinking that straight is going to be somewhere around 20 degrees. Let me get it right here. It's kind of hard to hold that number. That's your slope, but we have to clear the top of the hood. The center line of that filter is somewhere in this region right here. And if you go back from the front lip on this thing, you've got about 9 inches of vertical clearance from where this seats, or that front flat, and about 9 3/4 over here. So we've got a lot to work with, and I see you're already in there looking at it.
Yeah, eyeballing it, that puts us about a third of the way up into the supercharger there.
Yeah, you're about 9 3/4. In the center, it's a little,
This will be biased out.
yeah, it's got a little feature in the center that's probably not going to bother us. We're going through the hood. There's no two
Yeah,
ways
we'll
about
poke
it.
through here, and then
Yeah,
as we angle that down, it'll start to dip under the hood.
I'd like to do this. It makes the angle here, it makes the angle here, and this is straight. That would be the cleanest look.
Absolutely.
Now, how much this 5-inch tube or this nose comes through the hood, I don't know, but I got to tell you, I think it's going to look menacing. You're going to have this guy, and we've got whatever angle the engine's on. I don't know if it's dead flat. It looks like it's down at the stern, so
Yeah,
to speak.
it's tilted a few
couple
degrees.
of degrees.
Yep.
So we'll look in the CAD and get that angle. But this cover, blower drive, is out here. We've got to clear the belt, of course. And I think some of this is also going to be through the hood. So when we cut the hood, we're going to have something wild going on with those two pipes. And of course, we got two ways to go here. We can do everything black and the pipes black, or we can make it shiny, which
Polish
is,
it.
yeah, and the pipes. So you've got all this bling, and then you've got this rat-ass truck. Clearance to the cooling stack was the next thing I wanted to talk about. We're replicating the radiator here with cardboard.
Right, so the
The
stock,
blower pulley mounts to the front of this pulley.
so this is extended. I referenced the stock radiator for sizing and extended the thickness maybe 25%
Yeah.
over stock, just as a
I'll tell you what,
estimation.
you know, the thicker you get, the more velocity it takes,
Cool.
or the more suction or the more push it takes to move the air through it. And this thing's, when we turn up the wick on this thing, it's going to get quite happy real quick. And I mean, you're going to blow past 100 miles an hour before you're thinking about it. The duration on the loud pedal at full song is going to be short. You're either going to run out of nerve, run out of road, or the cop caught you. It's one of those three. But you're not going to lace it and do a Bonneville. I don't know. Guys try that out here on the freeway, and they always end up bending a lot of sheet metal. Might end up this is thinner and has less volume, because this is a recovery device. That thing's going to make a lot of heat. It's going to push up the temperature, and then when you back out, it stops making so much heat, and this brings the temperature back down. And I'm thinking if it's 3 inches thick, and we'll have to look at how many rows we're talking about and all of that when we talk with the heat exchanger guys. So that is pretty close. What we do for cooling fans, that's a big discussion.
Yeah.
Because we still have to get the charge air water cooler, the air to water cooler in here, and in front of that, we have to get the air conditioning condenser in here. That'll stack us up a little bit. The condenser we did for our 4-liter Jeep intercooled turbo kit.
Yeah, more narrow package as opposed to what we normally
Yeah,
run.
this looks like that heat exchanger. I know we've discontinued that product temporarily. I know that there's got to be one of those heat exchangers around. Hopefully we don't have to comb the fins and make it pretty. But we only need one.
Yeah.
One cardinal rule, guys, never sell the last one, because they're keepsakes. Now, I want to find that last one and put a tag on it. Don't frickin' sell this, Gale. I'll sign the tag. So you guys get the drift on what we're doing here.
Yep.
Got to clear there.
And then the so the elbow is going to have to be more of a low profile
Yeah.
organic transition into the 5-inch tube.
Yes. Kind of like what you're looking at right there.
Right, from
Only it won't be rectangular, but it'll be that type of transition. Let's see if I can find it here.
And what we can do this week, Gale, is get the
Right
scanner
there.
out here,
Yeah.
and we can
locate everything.
yeah,
to
we
it.
can scan the engine, the core
All this
support,
stuff.
radiator, and we can get the tires in at full compression and full lock,
Mm-hmm.
and then start laying out components in CAD.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Somewhere we're going to capture the air. There's going to be something that maybe this is the air inlet width.
Between
This is the
vertical support to the headlight will kind of be
Yeah.
our window.
Well, actually, it's going to be the air inlet for the 2 air filters. Will be your window. You're going to have that vertical slot that I was talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So that will define where this baffle goes. We'll have one on each
Direct
side.
it.
Stop the bleed out that way. Mm-hmm. We've also got to seal this stuff off to the hood, so we don't have cooling air just going over the hood. Now there was something bolted in. No.
The deflector.
Yeah.
I think we've got one of them.
Okay.
We got one of them here.
Well,
That's a factory piece.
there you go.
But when we go to
We just don't want it bleeding over the top into.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, we could do the factory pieces,
Yeah.
and just do. We just need to seal it off, and then we need to seal off the bottom. So if we come around and look at the front, we've got the bumper on here, and that's part of the truck. This is now part of the front end. Do we want to alter it? Do we want to trim it and make it more nice where it intersects with the body instead of having that 1.5 inch, 2 inch overhang?
tuck
Want
it,
to sex
tuck
it
the
up,
bumper
tuck it
and-
in, yeah. And do we want air inlet through that? That's the other question.
As in put some holes in this thing and let some more air get through.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be just like round holes with a hole saw. There'd be something odd round or sexy looking.
Yeah.
Maybe even make a little bit of a scoop out of it. Put an eyebrow on it, something
Yeah.
like that.
We could
Tunnel it
even
back in.
You've also got all
rework
of
this valence here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could maybe drop that whole thing.
But
here.
wherever I can get air into the nose, I want to get air into the nose. The more captured air as you get to 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, it starts to get, the ram air really starts to get important. The more we can capture, the less fan we need. So, at full song. And just when you're pumping all the BTUs into the cooling package, you've got the velocity. I'm trying to figure out where to put the fans. We could put the fans and sandwich them so that the air conditioning heat exchanger and the charge air cooling heat exchanger are in front of the fans. The fans are drawing through them and forcing through the
So
radiator.
they'd be puller fans, so to speak, off the front 2 heat exchangers that live in front of the.
They're pulling. They're
Yeah, yeah,
pulling
puller.
and pushing.
Right.
But the fans live against or close to the core itself.
Yeah, we got this pulley back here, like you mentioned, which really eats up a lot of space to get fans in. But we could try to fit some smaller fans back here and shroud them and draw through in this area on each side.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And shroud the bottom up so that we just pull through that area.
You need some diameter.
Yeah.
You need something very serious here. I mean, you don't want to be doing a couple of 400 CFM fans. That ain't going to get it. This isn't a bathroom vent fan, you know what I'm saying? Although it might be hot in there too.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out. But once you guys get all of the sheet metal into CAD, you know, once you scan all this in, then we can start doing the cooling package in CAD.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is exactly what we did on this road race truck. Everything from the firewall, well, the whole truck was in CAD. You know, this is one where we built the chassis here and everything else. This was totally done at Banks. So the bottom line is, it's a very fast truck. We kept killing transmissions. In a road race situation, there's all kinds of transients there. All kinds of throttle transients and decels and accels going on. I know we could write the software to run it, and we might ultimately. Transmissions look hell for stout, but we're going to Pikes Peak with this thing. That's my plan. The road racer goes to Pikes Peak for 22. So if we're going to get there, we got to solve the shifting problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here, you know, I'll just call up Clint at ATS and say, okay, let's talk about this. He's got the electronics. So, but this is different. Plus, there'll be different turbochargers. It'll be an L5P based engine like this is. Basically, it will be one of our turnkey engines, only it will be a turnkey Duramax racing engine. That's what's going in the road race truck. So, and you look at all the front tire we've got here. Of course, we had more in the rear. But back to this. So we've got a similar deal. We're stacking up nose air. We're forcing it through things. The charge air cooler is not air to air like this, and there's not two of them like these on the sides here are the charge air coolers. And there's part of the belly pan there. We're treating this like we're going to go race it somewhere. We honestly are. I mean, this thing is a solid piece. Don't be deceived by the skin. This thing might look like an old farm truck on the outside, and it is. But under the skin, what we're doing is going to be crazy frickin' cool.
Next week, the guys 3D scan the front end and begin fabricating the articulating bed.